Okay, good morning. Good morning, students. Another Flash Friday tutorial. So what I'm going to show you how to do is remap Unity inputs using OpenXR controller mappings to plug into Adventure Creator keys, aka what I just figured out how to do. So at the moment I'm using Adventure Creator, which is this sick system that lets you basically build out an entire game without having to do any code. I am a developer, but I am sick of it. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna pull Adventure Creator together to make a game. And that's actually where I started like 5 or 6 years ago, was using Adventure Creator. So it lets you do all this really cool stuff like creating like logic trees, and which is in itself, you know, there's plenty of tools like Play Canvas to do that. But then it plugs into all the adventure game stuff that we love if you're 35, basically. If you're a 35-year-old person on some sort of okay, great tutorial, keep going. So I'm gonna so basically you've got all this cool shit so that lets you do variables, inventory, yada yada yada. So the issue I was having was that I needed to skip the conversation. So I've finished setting up the conversation prompt. Is this gonna work? You guys can see what I can see. This is working. I've decided I'm just gonna like make quick tutorials out of what I'm doing, because somehow that'll help me sell a game in like 3 years. I don't know, I'm not sure. So yeah, I can go and click on this guy and talk to him. And I spent quite a long time, if anyone looks at my other videos, getting that dialogue looking nice. And I was going to go show my developer friend who, I was like, I gotta get this ready. And then once it was ready, I was like, fuck, if I can't skip it, that's the first thing I want to do. So once you make a dialogue system, you need to make it skippable. So Adventure Creator, like I was kind of expecting a skip function, and I actually found out there is stuff like that, but only later. So this is why I'm going to show you a few different ways to do it. But what they do is they've got a bunch of mappable inputs, because yeah, they're expecting someone that's using pretty established controller mechanisms. So those mappable inputs are here. I think that's going to be pretty hard to read. So, oh well, too bad. Sorry. Toggle cursor, flash hotspots, skip speech specifically, end cutscene, end conversation, throw movable, rotate. So basically all these like bundles of things that you would expect to be able to do in an adventure game specifically. And look, I was like, I could probably hack my way through it, but I was like, if I can tap into the input system, that'd be great. So I'm actually using a Unity plugin called VRTK, Virtual Reality Toolkit, which it's basically got these wrappers for all the inputs. So the inputs are all set up in this very hard to follow way that I didn't really understand. But basically what it boiled down to, I won't do the whole story. What it boiled down to was, so they had all these inputs here. So this is the input manager. What the input manager allows you to do is name or wrap an input and then define where it comes from. So to get there, you go to File, Edit, Project Settings, Input Manager. And I had all these tilia, and I was like, oh, well, the name here is the name. I don't know what's going on. So what I knew is I needed to do, well, look, I just gave away the goat. What I needed to do was skip speech. That's the name of the input. So if I go to the Adventure Creator, like guts, basically, it's always checking if skip speech input, right? So I was like, oh, well, what is that? And it is literally looking for an input get button down. So I've actually avoided like learning how these inputs work because it just seemed really complicated. 6-7 years later now, I was like, oh, okay, all right. So it's just, if you run this, it checks, has this button been triggered? And this button is called skip speech. And then Adventure Creator uses that as like an integral part of a bunch of execution order stuff. So it's checking if it's skip speech. And that's why I didn't want to like just hack in a skip speech, nuclear button. Is I think the reason it's handled like a button is because of execution order stuff, so that it happens at the right time. So I was like, all right, I respect you, Chris Burton, or whatever your name is, that makes Adventure Creator. One guy has been working on it as long as I've been doing this, and is just an absolute saint. I would have like literally deleted the whole project by now. So what I was really stuck on was, okay, skip speech, but how do I figure out which button is the right one? So I went through, like, you don't even want to know. Okay, so skipping action lists. There appears to be a skip input. Looking at skip. What a saint. This is Chris Icebox. Literally no idea how to do it. Okay, turn direct input from controller into button, come on. So VRTK wraps the button stuff. So this is where I was kind of confused. It was like, okay, we've got these cool wrappers. You don't have to worry about anything. So you can subscribe to the events. So left trackpad press, left axis. I won't go into that. That's a whole other kettle of fish. But you can basically plug into these. But there's no function that I could plug into that. So I was like, what do I do? And then, the breakthrough was left primary button press in Unity Input Manager is called joystick button 2. So they are actually wrapping, they're basically plugging in and wrapping that by creating their own input wrappers that then listen to those key codes, I guess. I'm still a bit hazy on the terminology. So I was like, okay, joystick button 1, skip speech. I actually tried that at the start. Then I went through like a billion iterations. Turns out that was actually correct. And what I'd failed to do was realize that in Adventure Creator, if you have a cutscene that's running in the background, you can't skip it. So that was actually the issue. And so basically, yeah, if you want to plug into or wrap a function, an input, you just have to use that name and then you can call that in code. So if get down, skip speech, and you can use any button here. If you're using VRTK, you can actually use their pre-made wrappers as a reference for what the names of those axes and stuff are. And you can also find that on the XR inputs as well. So I was pretty stuck on this. So specifically, it seems to be like, because I was trying all these variations of like primary, alternate, grip press, and I basically made a debug that fired and yada, yada, yada. It seems to be that these numbers are right. So primary button 2, 0, 3, 1, but that the name, and I don't know where this is written down, and hence me making this tutorial more than anything, so that I don't forget, because I will. I'm forgetting it as we speak. That's why I'm talking so quickly. Is the name is joystick button and then that number. And that seems to have worked. And I'm using the OVR input. So my understanding is this will work on Steam and stuff like that as well. What I'm trying to do is make it so that it's as least Oculus agnostic as possible. The last few things I've made are very Oculus heavy, which is fine. I don't really think that matters too much, but just why not? Then I had a little bit of a breakthrough because then I was like, fuck, I need to do end cutscene, right? So what I wanted to do is that when you move away from I won't show you, but when you move away from a conversation, I want to end the cutscene. It's also a button, but the thing is that my end cutscene button isn't as clear as my skip button. Like the skip button, I just want to be, when you first get the dialogue and you just mash it because you don't want to hear it. Like I want that to be the button, but the skip button, like as an end cutscene, I want to happen when you teleport. And only when you teleport, and I'll actually use, like the ability to end the cutscene will be defined by whether you can teleport away from it or not. So that'll be the gate. Actually, I think I figured that out over here somewhere in so always make sure you're taking lots of notes as you go if you have any executive function issues. Did move, trigger, global action list, can trigger action list. So if you can move, then you can skip. So it's not as simple as a button though, because the move actually is a combination of a few inputs, which is right axis up to like start the teleport and then release to confirm, which isn't an input that I could use. So then I was like, I don't want to go through all this again. So I was like, I'll just have a little dig in the code, and I found Control F end cutscene. So is this a tutorial? I think so. Like you have to be pretty lucky to find the information you're looking for in it. But okay, so I found end cutscene, which is a function, and I was like, oh fuck, all right, well, all right. Wish I'd have found that for the skip. There probably is one for the skip. And then I was like, action list manager, how do I call that? And then I had a look and it says, okay, when an action list run, it should be placed on a game engine prefab. And I was like, game engine prefab. Then I found the game engine for Adventure Creator, and I was like, oh baby. So that is all these things that I just thought were these like mysterious forces floating in the sky that you could never be you know, whatever. So the skip cutscene compared to like just nuking everything, which was actually what I was doing, is great because it actually runs through the entire cutscene's action list so that you kind of can confirm that it'll be at that final state. So what I did was that I went to VRTK, which like I said, exposes all these like basically layers of wrappers, which I could talk about for days, but specifically, instead of having it plugged into the joystick, I have the joysticks talking to the teleporter. And then the teleporter also has its own bunch of events that you can subscribe to. So when teleport happens from any joystick, I plug it in. So this is an event, a Unity event. They are the basis of everything I do. I plug it into the game engine. So what I did was I dragged the game engine here, and then all of a sudden I had literally every like game engine system available to me. So specifically, the one I'm looking for is Action List Manager. So this manages all the action list and cutscene. So what I can do now, drum roll please, is drum roll please. I'm just gonna keep saying drum roll please until it loads. I'm not gonna edit these videos, cut them short. I don't have time for that. I wake up at 6:30, I do yoga, I go for a walk, then I do an hour's development or art, and then I start my normal job. My normal job is starting in like 1 minute. In fact, I'm probably running late now. So teleport around. This is all with VRTK. Curved UI I'm using to like interact with the UI system. Probably don't need to do that. The only custom code I've written so far is a hotspot detector and activator. It's like one line, like one body of code. So Scoot, this is Scoot, my digital scooter. I can select it. I can have the conversation. Okay, I can skip. Oh yeah. For all my lazy, specifically one person I know that is the next person I want to show it to. How am I supposed to catch glow hoppers? Blah blah blah. So now I can teleport away, and it'll run through. Oh, okay, maybe it doesn't let me skip when there's a conversation hole. Hang on. Hey, there we go. So it skips through, gives me the input. So now the conversation looks good, feels good, but also I can access the state handling stuff built into Adventure Creator as opposed to having to build it all myself from scratch. Rock and roll, best tutorial ever. You're welcome. 9 o'clock on the dot.